Hey guys, what's happening? Behind me is my 1951 Chevy 1-ton flatbed project. So this truck has a ton of history. My dad bought this even before I was born. And I remember growing up, my brother and I would always be riding in this truck. My dad had this truck as a wood hauling truck. So there's a ton of history. It's been sitting at his house for quite a long time. And I started to express some interest in it. And finally he gave me the truck, which was kind of cool. So I talked to him about the plan, and really my plan, that what I wanted to do to the truck really follows what he wanted to do to the truck. And I actually made some renderings and some mock-ups of what I wanted to do to it. The color scheme that I decided was pretty similar to what he had planned, which was a tan and a brown two-tone kind of a color scheme, which I really like. I don't see a lot of them like that. The other thing is, a lot of these trucks have really long beds. Some of the 1.5 ton and 2-ton trucks had 12 and 15 foot beds on them, and I wanted kind of the shorter truck look, and that's in fact what my dad wanted as well. So I put basically I think an 8-foot bed on it, which I really like the proportions. I like kind of that stubbier bed. The other thing about this truck is I put a big tow hitch on it. I think it's a class 4, maybe a class 5 hitch, I forget, but I want to be able to tow with it. The other big thing about this truck is that I changed is changing the chassis. It's actually on a 1982 GMC frame that I shortened 23 inches to make the same wheelbase as the 1951 truck. What I did is I actually made a notch, a cut right here. This is where it was. I've got actually a video of how I shortened the frame. By doing that, you can kind of see across on the other way. Instead of cutting it straight off, I made a cut down all the way across and then down again. That way when I welded it back together, it's a lot stronger. The only thing I have left to do here is I'm going to plate the inside, and then I'm actually going to put a fish plate, probably a diamond shape, just on the outside to make it even stronger. The reason that I did that is I was going to do disc brakes on it anyways, and I wanted to have a better rear end. And by the time you factor in those costs of changing an original 1-ton to try to make it work, I was able to get the chassis for almost free anyways by the time I sold some of the other parts off that I didn't need. So this was a better starting point. But besides the cab mounts, there's not really a whole lot else to it. Since I'm having a flatbed, there's no fitment of an actual bed. So this was the pretty simple choice and easy way to go. The other thing you can see in the mock-up is I have those toolboxes, which I really like. My dad liked those too. I originally thought I was going to do gas tanks right there, big spun aluminum gas tanks, which look pretty cool, and I have a rendering that shows that. But I ended up deciding on going with the toolboxes there. The other thing I'm going to do to the truck is put those like shorty racks on it. I really like that look of the truck. From an engine standpoint, it's just a Chevy 350 engine. It was actually out of one of my dad's trucks that threw a rod, so I got that rebuilt. I put a crank in it. I'm not actually sure that I did it correctly because I didn't use plastic gauge when I put the new rods and clearance, the bearings. When I assembled it, I basically just got all new. I got a crank and got a new bearing set and threw them in. So it's kind of a question mark if this 350 is going to work. But I didn't really need anything crazy. I just wanted to go with a normal Chevy 350 because I have a ton of parts that are super available. It's got a turbo 400 transmission, which is going to be plenty. The wheels on this are 19.5 inch, and it's got a semi-floater 14-bolt rear end with I think 373 or 390 gears in it. So by the time you factor in the tire height in the back, I'll be able to go on a highway with no issues at all. So again, it's just an around town kind of a hauling truck. I really love the look of the visor. Obviously, I'm going to keep that. I feel like every car I own, I want to put a visor on because I just love the look. I'm also going to do tinted windows on this truck. New hardware. I've got a ton of new stuff ready to go on it. My plan is obviously finish the cab first. I started with a bunch of the metal work. I really have to finish patching all of the holes. I don't know what it is about these trucks, but once you get one of these cabs torn apart, there's like what seems to be hundreds of unnecessary holes in the firewall. So I've been taking my time to go through that to try to fill some of those holes so that I can get the cab sealed up. My next step there, after that's done, is I'm going to pour 15 the cab. I've got a couple other patches that still need to put in place, but I'm going to pour 15, which is going to be a rust, basically inhibitor or sealer, encapsulator, however you want to call it, so that I can have a solid base that I can then build off of. I'm not doing carpet in this truck. I'm going to do the original style vinyl because, again, I want it to be a nice work truck, and I want to be able to get in there with muddy boots and not really worry about it. I've got a custom seat, I think, out of a late 80s Chevy pickup, which I really like. It's right up here. It's brown. It's all foam, so it's a lot more comfortable than the spring seat that was in this originally. The other thing you'll notice in these original trucks is there's a seat frame that's actually spot welded into the cab, and I did away with that again because the seat that I have in there has its own frame, so had to do some ripping that out and correcting and fixing the issues that I caused myself by doing that into the cab. But overall, I think it's going to be a better result. It's going to be really comfortable. I've got a custom column that I bought, I think, from CPP that's a tilt column, so I'll be able to get the steering wheel right where I want it. I'm also, instead of the floor mount brake booster that originally was on one of these trucks, I have a engine. I've got a new brake pedal and a firewall mount brake booster, so I'll convert that. The other thing, on these 1-ton trucks out of the 82, these had Hydro Boost brakes, so I'm going to use Hydro Boost as well because, again, I wanted really good stopping power with the disc brakes up front and the drums on the dually rear. So I wanted it to be able to stop well, even if it was loaded down with wood and whatever else I'm going to end up hauling with it. Car trailer, probably. I've got drop spindles in the front. The hubs that I put on the front are the non-dually hubs because I needed to shrink the front track width. Normally, you can see the front ends of these from a 1951 is super narrow. So if you were to just plop that on this truck in the normal form without changing the track width, the wheels would be sticking out like crazy. It's one of the things that I get really annoyed by. I go to a car show and I see a truck of this vintage that has like a Blazer chassis swap, and it's so obvious because it doesn't even look like it fits. It looks like somebody took the top end of a truck and the body of a truck and set it on a chassis that was like completely mismatched. Some people like that style. If you're trying to actually have your wheels stick out, that's great. I don't really like that look. I like the look, when you look at it, you can't tell that it's been chassis swapped. You can't tell that something different has been done to it, but you still have the benefit of all the modern suspension and the geometry and the way better ride and parts availability, brake parts, and other things like that. So that's kind of what I wanted to go with here. Overall, just a good running truck, solid truck. From an overall suspension standpoint, I've got it lowered 2 inches in the front with the drop spindles, and in the back I've got lowered leaf shackles just to drop the springs down. I didn't need anything too crazy or too far rubbing, but just lowered down a little bit. And you can see when I showed you the bed there that it is actually, there's a 4x4 that I'm going to use a steel 2x2 instead, so it's going to bring that bed down probably about 2 inches. From an interior standpoint, like I said, I'm going to have that Chevy seat. From a gauges standpoint, I love the analog gauges. I still want it to like look and feel original inside, but I've got new old gauges with new guts and new internals, similar to what I want to do on the Fleetline here. But have the analog original gauges. I purchased all that. I'm going to redo the speedometer, so it's going to be an original looking speedometer. I'm going to paint the dash so it looks nice, but basically keep it original vintage looking from the inside. I'll probably do one of those retro sound Bluetooth radios, just because you got to have tunes when you're hauling a car around and picking up a load of stuff from Home Depot or whatever I might end up doing. So got to have some tunes. That's the one thing I'm going to change. I'll probably do kick panel speakers or something under the seat there, just so that you have some modern tunes. But besides that, nothing else visible or modern updated, because I really love the old school look. New glass, I'm going to buy all new glass for the truck. Obviously new window seals, but new glass. You can buy the kit that has the new glass in either clear or tinted. I'll probably do tinted, again, because I'm going to be parking outside with this truck. I'll want to have that little bit of sun protection that comes with the UV tint. So I'll do another video where I go over a ton of the history of the truck. My dad has bought it years ago before I was even born. So he's got a ton of stories with this truck. He actually lived in a camper that he built on the truck. There's tons of pictures of my brother and I riding around in this truck as he was going to get wood on the property and firewood for the winter, and taking things to the dump and all kinds of stuff. So it's got a ton of history, a ton of sentimental value. I'm never going to get rid of the truck, obviously, and I'm going to make it so that it's turnkey and really dead reliable, which is kind of a theme that I have with the style of builds that I like to go with. I like to be able to jump into something and drive it anywhere reliably, be able to replace parts on it, nothing too exotic, and again, nothing over the top. The cab stuff I hope to have done, wrapped up, and doing Pour 15 this weekend. So if you like what you see, you want to see the progress of this restoration, please stay tuned, subscribe to our channel, ring that little bell that's down there on the bottom to make sure that you get notified when I post a new video. There's going to be a lot of stuff moving forward here and progressing. I'm going to be committing to doing weekly videos moving forward, so there's going to be a lot of good content coming up. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this, and thanks again for watching the video. We'll see you in the next one.